right, first one. It says factor completely. Okay. I notice when I look at this, I think to myself, 5, 10, and 75, what do those numbers have in common? And I think those numbers can all be divided by 5, right? So I'm going to pull out a 5 here, right? I just look and I see that about those numbers. Here you can look and see, oh, each of these numbers can be divided by 3. What about these numbers, right? You figure it out, okay? Each of these numbers can be divided by 5. So 5 times what is 5x squared? Well, 5 times x squared is x squared. 5 times what is negative 10x? Well, positive times negative is negative. 5 times 2 is 10, and this is 2x, so this should be like this. And then 5 times what is 75? Look, if you don't know, watch what you can do. 5 times what is 75? You do this, and it's negative 75. So negative 75 divided by 5, that's going to tell you what number I can multiply 5 by to get 75. That's negative 15. Okay, now it says factor completely. That means you can't just do the first step. You got to go all the way. So I'm going to bring this. This can be factored now. I need two numbers that multiply to negative 15 and add to negative 2. Multiply to negative 15 and add to negative 2. So I think, okay, if it's going to multiply to negative 15, I need to have one positive and one negative. And then numbers that multiply to 15 are 15 and 1 and 5 and 3. Which of those pairs subtracts to get 2? And remember, they have to subtract to get 2 because one's positive, one's negative. Okay, now I want, I want the result to be negative, so I need there to be more negatives than positives. So I'm going to make the 5 negative and the 3 positive. And there's my answer. Okay, notice there's no equal sign. All I can do is just factor this, and my answer looks like this. Now here, I already have something that's been factored. This is called factored form, right? Notice it looks kind of like someone's already factored it. This equals 0, it says solve. And here's what I know. I know that if this, a number times a number equals 0, if a number times a number equals 0, then one of the numbers must equal 0. So either 2x plus 5 equals 0, or x minus 3 equals 0. And I'm just going to solve these two equations. Here, I just add 3 to both sides, and I am done. That's one of my answers. Here, there's a little bit more work to do. It's a two-step equation. 0 minus 5 is negative 5. I'm dividing by 2. You can put this in your calculator or leave it as a fraction, doesn't really matter. Negative 5 divided by 2 is negative 2.5. And so your answers are, you can leave it like this, or you can just write like this. X is either negative 2.5 or 3. If you're going to write it like this, put the smaller answer first. So the negative answer would go first in this case. Okay, here. Now, this one's kind of a doozy. Here's the thing. I'm telling you, completing the square is actually going to be the easiest method here. I'm going to show you completing the square, and I'm going to show you quadratic formula. But quadratic formula, you're going to see for this problem, it's a doozy. Okay, but let me show you completing the square. And the reason that completing the square jumps out to me is because I notice this has a 1, right? This is a 1 right here. And this number is even. So right away, I think to myself, if I just get rid of this 4, and I say this, x squared minus 12x plus something equals negative 4 plus that same thing, I'm going to be able to factor this in a way that something is squared. Okay, and remember with completing the square, what I'm doing is saying, okay, I'm going to factor, and I need these two numbers to add to negative 12, and I need them to be the same. So what numbers add to negative 12 and they're the same? Well, I could just do negative 12 divided by 2, that's negative 6. So this is x minus 6 and x minus 6, like that. That's x minus 6 squared. And remember, this number is these two multiplied. So that's negative 6 times negative 6, that's positive 36. This one's positive 36. Okay, so that becomes 36 minus 4, that's 32. Now, remember, when I solve this, I square root both sides. I get x minus 6 equals square root of 32. Okay, now what we talked about is just adding 6 to both sides and being done right here. And here's the thing. And remember, this is, when I square root this is plus or minus the square root of 32. Here's the thing. That guy can be simplified. That can be simplified. Remember how to simplify radicals? Look, I'm going to do it right here. Remember I did this, I said, okay, 32 could be 8 times 4, that could be 2 and 2, this could be 4 and 2. Okay, so it looks like this. Now remember, 32, so that's 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Remember the doubles, they went in their own house, and the singles stayed in their own house. So this became this. So, and remember this was 2 times 2 is 4, but it's the square root of 4. So that became 2, this became 2, this became the square root of 2. This square root of 32 becomes 4 root 2. Becomes 4 root 2. Okay? So this becomes x equals 6 plus or minus 4 root 2. Okay? That's the answer. Okay, let me show it to you with quadratic formula. I know a lot of you are way more comfortable with that. Go back to this original equation. Okay, I'm going to write a equals 1, b equals negative 12, and c equals positive 4. Okay, so opposite of b, excuse me, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, and that's all over 2a. Okay. Continuing down, right? Now this becomes 12 squared is 144 minus 4 times a times c. This becomes minus 16. Okay, so that's 144 minus 16. Okay, that's 128. So this becomes 12 plus or minus the square root of 128 over 2. Okay, the thing is that just like before, the square root of 128 can be simplified. Okay, so now notice, look, this is the answer. I want to be clear. You can stop here. This is one method, and I'm showing you a totally different method, right? So this is one method you could use. This is a different method. Most of you are more comfortable with the quadratic formula, but it's going to require you simplifying a bigger number here, which is not the end of the world, right? This is 128. You might notice like, oh, that's even, so I'm going to divide it by 2. That's 64. Oh, that's even 2. I'm going to divide it by 2. Now look here. You get to 32, and you're like, oh, I already did that. Okay. But anyway, this 32 becomes 5 2's, right? I could just keep going and just get 2's and 2's and 2's. This becomes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 2's. Okay, let's just do this the short way, right? This becomes a pair of 2's. That becomes a 2 on the outside. This becomes a pair of 2's. That becomes a 2 on the outside. This becomes a pair of 2's. That becomes a 2 on the outside. This is root 2. 2 times 2 times 2, that's 8 root 2. Okay, now watch what happens. This becomes 12 plus or minus 8 root 2 over 2. Now, what I observe here is that 12 can be divided by 2, and 8 can be divided by 2, so I can simplify this fraction. 12 divided by 2 is 6. 8 divided by 2 is 4. Okay, that is the answer. It's fully simplified. Notice it's the same answer, just 2 different methods. So you can use the quadratic formula, that's fine. You can use completing the square, that's fine. You can do both to check your work, that's fine. Okay, but this is a tricky problem.